Okay, hello everyone. So I think we can start. So in the last lecture we discussed link layer, right? So if you have any question from the last week, you can ask. Otherwise, obviously, I would be asking questions in the final exam, but so much better. You must have some clarity about networks and communication. So this is week 9, right? So technically, like from week 1 to week 8, we were discussing different protocol stack, like different layers of this internet protocol stack. We started from application layer, and then we discussed transport layer and network layer, and then in the last week we discussed link layer. So if you have any question regarding this, we can discuss these layers, or at least functionalities of these layers. So as a business information systems student, you must know that, like, if someone is planning for some application for your business, for your company, you must know that at least these are the bottlenecks of every layer. These are the important functionalities of these layers. This is possible or not possible, right? So we discussed different protocols, different standards in each layer. Like in application layer, we have HTTP. All the web surfing is because of HTTP, right? Because in HTTP, we request one web page from a web server. It could be Facebook page, it could be CNN, it could be BBC, or it could be any NUI Galway website page, right? So we use this protocol HTTP. And similarly, on application layer, very important protocol is SMTP. Because of this protocol, we can send emails, all type of emails, right? And obviously, IMAP or POP3 or POP protocols can be used to retrieve your emails. Then we discussed transport layer. Transport layer is responsible for process-to-process communication. If this computer is communicating with this computer, then obviously WhatsApp application would be, or Skype application would be running on this computer, and one WhatsApp or Skype application would be running on that computer. So communication between two applications is usually handled by this transport layer. That's why we are saying that this is process-to-process communication. And for the internet, very important protocol for transport layer is which one? For transport layer, which protocol is very famous in terms of the internet? TCP, right? And TCP and UDP. We have two options, TCP and UDP. So, but in most of the cases, we do require TCP because it is reliable, congestion control is there, flow control is there in TCP. But obviously, it is not fast as compared to UDP, because in UDP, you don't need some sort of no connection establishment, no acknowledgements of data, no flow control. Only the sender has to send data at full speed or at defined speed, right? Predefined speed. And then they don't have to care about that the receiver has received this data or not. Okay, until and unless receiver will send some data and say that, okay, I didn't receive this data. Okay, so that's why this transport layer is very important. Then we have network layer, which is like some sort of core of the internet is there, router is there. Okay, and one network can communicate with another network with the help of router. It is not possible for NUIG network to communicate outside NUIG world without this network layer or without any router, right? And for TCP or for the internet, we use IP protocol, right? And we discussed this IP protocol that we have version 4 IP and version 6 is there. So main difference is the size of the headers and all the stuff, and especially IP addresses. We discuss IP addresses, how 32-bit IP address, what is 32-bit IP address for IP version 4, and 128-bit for IP version 6. But most of the communication nowadays is based on IP version 4, okay? But people are convincing others, but obviously it requires different hardware to run IP version 6. And it is not possible if some company has already invested millions of dollars in setting up routers and other stuff, then obviously it would be very difficult to replace all hardware with the new hardware, right? So this is network layer, and in network layer we also discuss different protocols are there, how these routers communicate with each other, how they find shortest paths, right? So most of the algorithms are based on some sort of greedy approaches, okay? So because sending data from this router to this router, for example, is expensive, because the link will charge according to the number of data sent or something, right? So if I have to pay 10 routers to send data, and there is another path in which I have to pay 5 routers, for example, or 5 links, then obviously this greedy approach will say, okay, send data through 5 links, because the cost would be reduced, and there are chances that transmission time would be reduced, right? But so this is network layer. Then in the last week we discussed link layer. So this link layer is about sending data from one computer to another computer which is connected adjacent to each other, right? So for example, if this laptop is connected to this Wi-Fi router, how it will send data? So we can say that communication between directly connected computers or directly connected nodes or machines. So for this purpose we use link layer, and Ethernet protocol is very famous. Everyone is using for local area networks Ethernet, and we also discuss different protocols on link layer like ARP, because communication would be based on MAC addresses, okay? In network layer, communication is based on IP addresses, but on link layer, communication would be based on MAC addresses. Every machine, we discussed this thing that every machine has a network card, and this network card will contain a unique number, okay, all over the world. So that's why you can send data. And we also discuss in link layer that setup cost is there, but once local area network is set up, then there is almost no cost other than electricity and other stuff, right? Maintenance or some sort of thing, because it's all local, okay? So it doesn't matter to this Wi-Fi router that if 10 people are connecting or 1 people are connecting, okay? So this is link layer. Ethernet is very common, and there are some protocols, ARP, right? So we discussed this thing in the last week. So the last thing is that we have to put it all together. So in the first half of this class, we will start from zero again. So you can imagine if you are coming to NUIG and connecting your laptop and want to get some data from CNN.com, how all the layers will work, okay? So that's why this lecture is very important in terms of revision of all layers. So we will go through this one example, that how a web request can be fulfilled, which protocols are using in it. So if this lecture is clear to you, then I hope all the material till week 8 would also be clear to you very easily. So for example, we have one scenario. Student attaches laptop to campus network. then obviously and just open browser and request www.google.com. Okay, so we will discuss what will happen over the internet, which protocols would be using. Okay, so you have 5 minutes. Can you write on some paper or on your notebook how this communication will be processed? Just try to recall from week 1 to week 8, and you have to submit that paper. So just write down on some paper. If you don't have paper, I can provide you papers. So it could be any picture, it could be any diagram, or just in points. It depends on you. It's not a test, but so I can show you a diagram. So this is a diagram, for example. Okay. So for example, you are sitting at NUIG campus here, and this laptop wants to communicate with Google web server. Remember, this web server will contain all the web pages that Google would be hosting. Same is the case with Facebook. Facebook would have one web server. Okay. Multiple web servers, but obviously we are considering only one web server which would be available for this region or something, because they have multiple copies, backup and all the stuff. Okay, so but we are considering, okay, there would be one web server for this region. So just think how the complete communication will work in application layer, in transport layer, on network layer, and similarly for link layer. So you have 5 minutes, take your time, no problem. Okay, so my first question is that what does this mean? If this IP address is, where is this? Let's say this one. So this is 32-bit IP address, right? Because 8 bits, 8 bits, 8 bits, and 8 bits. 32, it means that we are using IP version 4 here. Okay. But what this /24 means? In one lecture we saw that like we can convert this decimal number into a binary number, which is very, very easy, right? Like we can keep dividing with 2, and then, for example, if I want to convert, because we know that computers only know 0101 sort of thing, binary notation or binary representation, right? But for human readability, that's why we are converting this number into a decimal form, 68. Otherwise it would be a binary representation. And 8-bit means like if we have 68, so we are just dividing with 32, remainder will be 0. right? And then 17, remainder will be 0. Then 16 and 8, remainder will be 1, right? Again remainder will be 0. Again remainder will be 0. And now it's completed with 1 0. So you can see actually this 68 is would be represented as 1 0 0 1 0 0. Okay, so starting from here 1 0 0, then 1 0 0, and these are 7 bits, so just add 0 here. So that's why these are 8 bits. Okay, and obviously because this 68 is small number, that's why it's representing in 7 bits, right? But if we have 223, it would be represented by 8 bits. So it means that by 8 bits maximum number would go, I think, by 255. Okay, so it means that we can represent this address in 32 bits straight, and this 24 means this 24 that first 24 out of, for example, this is 32-bit address, so it means that first 24 bits are for network and other 8 bits are for hosts, for clients. Okay, so this 24 is important in IP version 4 to identify that what is a network address. So if this is the IP address of NUIG, right? So it means that first 24 bit would be used to identify NUIG, and then other bits would be assigned to different machines within NUIG, hosts within that network. Okay, so for outside world, it is very important to know that from these 32 bits, how many bits are for network identification. So NUIG network identification in this case is 24 bits, first 24 bits. Next 8 bits for internal host identification. Okay, so this is IP version 4 addressing, and it is very important. So you can see in this case first 13 bits are for network identification. Okay, same is the case with this one.
I don't really understand how you did that, like with the 0100. I mean, I got the
this one,
yeah, I got the
we start from here,
yeah,
1
yeah,
0 0 0, starting from here going up.
okay.
So you can see 1 0 0
Yeah.
1 0 0.
Where's 1?
There is 1. No?
Okay. Why is it? Yeah.
Because when we are dividing 17,
oh, it's 1 over.
yeah, remainder is there, right?
Okay, I see.
So remainder.
It was 0.
Okay, so this is very important to know like how IP address works. Okay, so this is subnet masking. So here masking is 19 bits, first 19 bits for network identification, and other bits would be for internal hosts. Okay, so but the address would be complete 32 bit. So for example, if this is 19 bits, so it means that whatever the 19 bits, for example, these are 19 bits, then how much remaining? 13 out of 32, right? So it means that after 19 bits, all other bits are 0 for network identification, all zeros, right? And all ones after 19 bits are for broadcasting. This is a broadcast address. So you can send data to all machines if you put 19 bits for networks and then put all 1 1 1 1 1. It means that it will broadcast data. but there would be so many addresses between this one from 0000 to all ones, right? This would be assigned to individual machines within a network. There are so many because 2 raised to power 13 is a big number. Can you compute on your computer what is the value of 2 raised to power 13? Calculator, scientific calculator. It would be a quite large number. So every bit, whenever every bit is changing, it means it is a new address, right? So it would be assigned to internal machines. So 2 raised to power 13, or you can say that whatever the number is -2, you can host that number of machines within that network if 13 bits are for hosts. Okay. So what is the value of 2 raised to power 13? Million? No. GB 1000. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 16. Some sort of 8,000 or something.
8,192.
Yeah, so obviously this is quite large number, 8,000, right? So it means that within NUIG they can assign 8,000 different IP address to different machines or even switches. And obviously at NUIG we wouldn't have 8,000 switches, right? If we talk about this sort of thing. Okay, so this is very important in understanding how IP addresses work. So back to the scenario. Any confusion about IP addresses? So 32 bits IP addresses, but for this network masking /19 would tell that okay, first 19 bits are for network identification. So it means that first 19 bits address this 64 or something, then all 0 would be a network address, all 11 would be a broadcast address for that network, and all the addresses between all zeros and all ones would be assigned to individual machines within a network. Okay, so yeah, it would be quite big number. 2 raised to power 13 is if around 8,000 or something, then obviously this would be more if this 19 is less. We are assigning more host addresses, okay, more bits. So back to this scenario. So basically this laptop, this machine would be arriving as a mobile client attaches to network, okay, and it will request web page www.google.com, and this web page is residing here. So this machine, we open one browser and we are just trying to request. So we will see how this communication will take place over the internet. Okay. In terms of clients, obviously it sounds very simple, but there are so many protocols to get that data. So first of all, this arriving machine has to get some IP address, some local IP address. That's why it will communicate with DHCP server. Okay. So connecting laptop needs to get its own IP address, local IP address, local area networks, right? So it will needs address of first hop router, address of DNS server. So it will uses DHCP. Okay. And in previous slides of week 7 or something, we have discussed this thing that how this machine will get data from DHCP, because it will broadcast one DHCP message that is there a DHCP server on this local area network, and if there would be some DHCP server, then it will communicate required information. Okay, so DNS information and first hop router information. So DHCP request encapsulated in UDP. So communication between your machine and DHCP would be based on UDP, not TCP. Encapsulated in IP protocol, and encapsulated in 802.3 Ethernet protocol. So this is important. For local area network, DHCP would be using Ethernet protocol, because all over the world 99% local area networks are using Ethernet protocol, this one 802.3. okay, and so by this way it will find out DHCP server. So Ethernet frame broadcast on LAN local area network received at outer running DHCP server. So because for example, these are the different machines, and this machine is a DHCP server, but I don't know, this machine does not know what is the IP address of this machine, right, or MAC address of this machine, because I am connecting to this network first time. So I will broadcast. On local area network, it's very easy to broadcast, and for broadcast I will be using UDP protocol. Okay, so broadcast means I will be sending data to all, just checking that okay, who is a DHCP server. Okay, and then obviously this DHCP server will respond back that I am DHCP server, my IP address is this one, my MAC address is this one, or ARP or something, right, or some other information.
I have a question. Encapsulated, does that mean it is converted?
Encapsulated, remember, data, first your data would be encapsulated with application layer data. So encapsulation means adding headers of each layer, encapsulation. Okay, so just like a tablet or drug, we encapsulate something, right? So okay, so Ethernet demurks to IP demurks, UDP demurks to DHCP. So it's just a conversion, because here we would be for DHCP application, we would, because this DHCP is for application layer, right? So at transport layer we would be using UDP, and IP at the network layer, and Ethernet at the link layer, and then we will send this data on physical wire or wireless, some sort of thing. Then this DHCP server will embed information accordingly. So DHCP server formulates DHCP acknowledgement containing client's IP address of first hop router for client. So it will, that DHCP server will tell, okay, this is the router address of NUIG, okay, because you want to communicate outside world, right? So you would require this first hop router, okay, and name and IP address of DNS server. So DNS server is also required. We discussed DNS server a lot of time, because on the browser I would be writing google.com. So google.com would have some IP address, and this DNS server knows what is the exact IP address of Google. Okay, so this DHCP will send this sort of information back to the client. So encapsulation at DHCP server, frame forwarded, switch learning through LAN, demultiplexing at client. Okay, DHCP client receives DHCP acknowledgement reply. Okay, so we discussed multiplexing and demultiplexing. Multiplexing is just embedding different information in one frame, and demultiplexing is you have to like reassemble that sort of information. Okay, so just like a motorway, at the start, from motorway you can there are so many roads, but then one motorway will contain all the cars that would be entering through toll plaza, right? And but at the exit, roads will go at can go to different cars, and roads can go to different destinations, right? So this is demultiplexing. So client now has IP address, knows name and address of DNS server, IP address of its first hop router. So this information, now client would have this information, okay? Because this information, DNS name and address and router IP address is very important to know, to communicate outside the world. And obviously client would be storing that information, and this information can expire after a few days, few time, it depends on the settings, okay? So whenever there is no data, the process will be repeated again, right? They have to send information or ask information from DHCP server. So before sending HTTP request, need IP address of www.google.com, and this IP address will be provided by DNS. So after DHCP communication with DNS is required, okay? So DNS query created, encapsulated in UDP. So again, DHCP is using UDP protocol, same is the case with DNS. DNS is also using UDP. It's not using TCP. So DNS query created, encapsulated in UDP, encapsulated in IP. Everyone would use IP. For internet network layer, there is only one commonly used protocol, almost 100%. This is IP protocol, okay? So whenever someone asks about network layer protocol, you can say IP, okay? IP address, IP protocol, internet protocol. So encapsulated in IP, encapsulated in Ethernet. Why it's encapsulating in Ethernet? Because it's an internal communication, LAN, local area network. DHCP is a part of local area network. Local DNS server is a part of a local area network. And local area network uses one standard, which is Ethernet, okay? To send frame to router, need MAC address of router interface. So on local area network, communication is based on MAC addresses. So it means that they require MAC address of router interface, and ARP would require fulfill this sort of thing. So ARP query. So ARP query broadcast received by router, just like a DHCP server, it will create a ARP query, right? And it would be broadcasted, okay? So just remember that when you don't have any address, the only option is to broadcast, okay? So just like that, if I require one pen and I don't know who have this sort of pen, I would just ask for all of you that, okay, who has green pen, for example. Once I know that, okay, this person has pen, so I can communicate directly. But if I don't know, I will speak loud and I will ask complete class, right?
So it asks for the IP address when it's broadcasting, or?
It will asking for MAC address. MAC address. On local area network, for communication, for direct communication, you need MAC address, machine address, okay? And this ARP query broadcast received by router, which replies with ARP reply, giving MAC address of router interface, okay? So client now knows MAC address of first hop router, so can now send frame containing DNS query. So IP datagram containing DNS query forwarded via LAN switch from client to first hop router, okay? And just remember that there is a switch in between router. So we saw this sort of thing, that even this Wi-Fi router is directly connected to a switch, and this switch is connected to a router, NUIG router, okay? So all the communication between this machine and NUIG router would be through or via this switch, okay? This symbol is for switch, this rectangle and cross, and this circle sort of thing is for routers, okay? IP datagram forwarded from campus network into Comcast network. For example, we have NUIG is taking internet services from Vodafone or Sky or some other company. It means that the router of NUIG would be directly connected with the router of some ISP, internet service provider. Okay, so into routed tables created by RIP, OSPF, IS-IS and or BGP routing protocols to DNS server. Okay, so for routers communication, we discussed this thing in network layer that we have different protocols, especially OSPF and BGP, to share information with each other, errors or even path and all this stuff. Okay, so then demux to DNS, and then DNS replies to client with IP address of www.google.com. Okay, so in this scenario we don't have any local DNS. Okay, just like at your home there is no local DNS server machine installed on your home at your home. Okay, so it means that you have to send information to your ISP to get IP address of google.com, because that ISP would contain DNS server. So DNS would reply the IP address of google.com. Then this machine will know, okay, what is the IP address of google.com. To send HTTP request, client first opens TCP socket to web server. So remember, in TCP they have to make handshake, right? Three-way handshake. They have to establish connection. Now they can establish connection because this laptop knows IP address of google.com that is given by DNS server. So it's very easy. It will request for so TCP SYN segment step 1 in TCP three-way handshake, inter-domain routed to web server, and this web server and this sort of thing connection would be established. So web server responds with TCP's SYN-ACK, acknowledgement of the SYN-ACK, step 2 in TCP three-way handshake, back to the machine. So then TCP connection would be established. So now TCP connection is established. Now they can simply HTTP request for web page. So now that's why HTTP is required, okay? Because now it wants to communicate with this web server. So HTTP request sent into TCP socket. Okay. So IP datagram containing HTTP request routed to www.google.com, and then obviously its response will be back to the client. Web server responds with HTTP reply containing web page. It will contain HTML file of www.google.com, and then this so IP datagram containing HTTP reply routed back to client, and this data would be displayed on web browser, and web browser is just like a compiler. It will render HTML just like you see usually in your web page. Okay, so every web page contains HTML, but browser knows how to display HTML code just for humans. So by this way it will display content of that page, whatever it is written in that page. Okay, so this is the communication for one page that would be requested. So you can see even it looks very simple, but to get that page it has to communicate with DHCP, it has to communicate with DNS, it has to find local or first hop router, right? So even we are not discussing this sort of communication, that what would be happening within routers. Obviously, they have to select paths and they have to communicate with each other. But so this is total internet, like all the communication, even if you are using WhatsApp on your mobile or Skype or something, same sort of communication would be done by this way, that you would be establishing connection, you would be getting, but before establishing connection, you would be getting IP addresses and DNS sort of thing. So if you have any question, so can anyone tell all the things that you have written on your page, how much it was according to this thing? 10%, 20%, 90%?
This is the only thing I wrote that was correct.
Okay, okay, which is good, I think. So, so here you can see all protocols are using layer by layer, because every layer knows what is the functionality, what they have to do, right? So if we are using HTTP, then we can simply replace it with SMTP when we would be sending email. Okay, so we can start a new topic from here, which is about network security. So any idea about network security? Have you heard the words encryption and decryption? The message is encrypted or some sort of thing. What does it mean?
Like jumping up so people can decipher it.
Yeah. Okay. So technically this encryption or cryptography sort of thing was more related when there was World War I and World War II, because if you are sending your messages, so there are chances that enemies can heard that messages, they can intercept your calls, they can intercept your letters, right? So it's very old field. Obviously it's not related to networks, but like for last 1000 years, different countries, different people are using different form of encrypted messages, so that only the person like who knows how to decrypt that message, right, they knows it. So why this thing is important? Because over the internet we are sending so many confidential data. For example, we are doing transactions and we are sharing our debit card or credit card information, PIN number, or some other very confidential information, right? So that's why, and we know that this network resources are shared. If I am sending data from Ireland to Australia, for example, it means that this data would be going through different regions, and obviously these regions, even if it's going through some sea or some ocean, still it is a property of some country, right? And they are using that same link. They can intercept or they can see that data. And obviously if that data is not encrypted, then anyone can read that sort of data. So any idea about how this encryption will work? Any guess idea? Just forget about networks. For example, you are a part of some secret service or some sort of intelligence service and you are on some mission, right? So, and obviously if you speak some other language like French or something, and I don't know if French, obviously that words would be encrypted for me, right? Until and unless I can Google it and search it, that's fine. But obviously human languages are now very easily translatable into different languages. So obviously if I am sending messages in Chinese or Russian and I don't know that language, obviously I cannot understand, right? So the easiest way is, what could be the easiest way? You want to send data one message. For example, you have to write some letter physically, okay, and post it through on post or something, and people in on post are opening letters and they are reading all the stuff. Okay, it's not a national security threat. Okay, pack it and send it. So what you will do? Suppose there is some war or something going on. You can imagine, go back to 50 years old or something. So you have to send a letter to your friend in some other country, in Spain or in Germany, for example. And you know that people in Ireland will read your letter, and same is the case, people in Germany will read your letter. Might be Irish people wouldn't read it, but for Germany, for their security, might be they open it, read it, and then it reseal and it will send to the address if they find no issue with the letter. So how you will send that important letter with some very confidential information that you don't want to share with anyone? Just think. And there is no communication, other communication is possible, like on telephone or something. How you will send? The only way is through post.
Send it like one letter at a time or something, that they would be able to like break down information so that when they open letters they don't know what it means.
Okay, nice.
Or use a code that only you two know.
Yeah, might be sending him or her before Germany, you are agreed with some sort of code. Okay, I will add some letters in each letter with some formula, and you have to minus that letters, and then so what else?
Write it backwards.
Sorry?
Write it backwards or something like that. You can look at it in a mirror then and it's correct way around.
Okay. Do you know different intelligence company agencies send their messages over CNN or BBC transmission? On TV transmission, they can decrypt their messages. Okay, because they know that TV transmissions, even on Netflix, might be CIA would be sending messages to different people working in different countries. It's very easy, because if this is one picture, it has multiple pixels, different values. And if I know that while decrypting this message or encrypting this image, I embed one message in these layers. You don't know, but I know that. I will get the same image on TV. I would have special device, and it will very easily show me a message for me. Okay? So in this world, nothing is free. Just remember that you have to pay. You are paying something. So so there are so many ways, and absolutely in terms of right, like we have to decrypt our messages, but obviously we have to agree on some protocol. Okay? So the easiest one is that, okay, instead of writing something, for example, if I can write. So for example, we have messages in ABC. We know that we have alphabets till Z. So for each alphabet, might be we can replace it with some characters. For example, A would be a $sign, right? B would be something question mark. C would be something else, dot. And then for each message, I can write in this way, right? But obviously, if it would be easy, sometimes it could be easy because it can compromise very easily. If somehow I know that, okay, this thing is repeating every time, and we can decrypt it by brute force sort of thing, okay? But in this encryption and decryption algorithms are mostly working, like they would be adding different bits, different data, right? And might be I would be adding my digital signatures or something, so that the decrypt only the receiver can know this sort of thing, and then they can decrypt message. Okay. So there are so many cases in which in World War I or World War II, countries were sending messages to each other and they were compromised, and enemies didn't tell to them that we have decrypted your algorithms, and they use computers to because in 1946 or something, the purpose of main to create computers and usage was to decipher this sort of messages. Okay, so there is a story that might be for Germans, Americans decrypt their messages, which could be possible manually in months, and by using computers they decrypt messages in 30 minutes. So yeah. So same is the case with networks. If you are sending your data, then obviously you have to take care of your data, because that network links are shared. Anyone can read. Okay. So it means that you have to send your password. That's why we are using HTTPS, right? Which is more secure. It requires encryption and decryption of your data. So internet not originally designed with much security in mind. So in 1996, when the internet was launched, the main idea was to share data, and at that time even that internet was created for military purposes or some sort of, although few universities were involved in US, but the ultimate purpose was internet was to share information, in sort of military purposes. So but at that time that security was not in mind. So you can see in all layers we haven't discussed any sort of thing that this layer is responsible for security. Do I? No. There is no layer, application layer, transport layer. We discussed different protocols of IP layer and link layer. There is no link, there is no layer responsible for security sort of thing. Okay. So original vision was that a group of mutually trusting users attached to a transparent network. So initially they assumed that the only trusted people would be communicating with each other, so there wouldn't be any issue for security. But after the expansion of the internet, obviously this thing was not like correct. So that's why security considerations in all layers are required, because if one layer is compromised, it can create a problem, right? So we have seen so many things, like I have told you that one person in Pakistan, what he did is that, like, he changes IP layer sort of thing settings, and YouTube, it's very old thing, but 7-8 years ago. So YouTube services was down because of one person. Okay, so this is security. So that's why we have to consider security thing in all layers, because you can hijack data at any layer. Okay, because we are encapsulating data at application layer, same data would be going in on the transport layer. Data is still there, right? Only the headers are adding in each layer. So if one layer is compromised, then complete communication can be compromised. So we now need to think about it, how bad guys can attack computer networks, how we can defend networks against attacks, and how to design architectures that are immune to attacks. So there are many examples how this network security can be compromised. One thing is packet sniffing. Okay. So broadcast media, we know that Ethernet and wireless is a broadcast media. All the data that you are sending to this Wi-Fi router, I can get on my computer very, very easily. I know that when I was doing my MS or something, right, I can easily hijack session of Facebook. Like if this person is using Facebook on her computer, I can easily open her account on my computer because of this packet sniffing sort of thing. Then after some time, Facebook know this problem that session can be hijacked, then they put some extra security things for session hijacking. But otherwise, it was very, very easy to hijack someone's Facebook, right? But the requirement was that he or she would be using Facebook at that time. So no compromise on password sort of thing, but the compromise in terms of session hijacking, okay? So this is because of packet sniffing, because that broadcast media is shared, and especially on Ethernet and wireless. So so you can see, if this B computer wants to send data to this router or this machine A, then obviously this same C machine can read, because this link is shared, right? Because you are sending data to this Wi-Fi router, I am sending this data to Wi-Fi router, means all the data that could be transmitted to this one, I can read. And if I can read, and okay, it will come later on, I can say that, okay, this is not a Wi-Fi router, I am Wi-Fi router, send your credentials to me, right? So the only difference, remember in the first part of this lecture, every new machine tries to find out DHCP, tries to find out router, tries to find out DNS, 3 things. So if somehow, if I assure you that I am a router, I am a DHCP server, I am a DNS, and I would be sending you wrong DNS of Google IP address, then what you will do, you will take that IP address, you will be thinking that this DNS is sending correct IP address, and you would be connecting to another web server which is not for Google, but that web server would be hosting same look like web page of Google, and you will add your credentials. Okay, if you are opening Gmail, you would be adding your username and password that would be storing on my server, and after that your account would be hacked. Got this point or no? No? Okay. So whenever new machine is trying to connect actual web server of Google, they require different addresses like DNS server address, IP address of Google, right? So if that IP address of Google is not correct, instead of provided by actual DNS, I provide this address to you, and that IP address was not Google IP address, that IP address was some other machine address. What you will be doing, you would be sending your data to fake Google account or Google server, right? What is it? Okay. So it means that data can be compromised. So that's why we require some sort of encryption, that whenever you would be sending data to Google, it would be encrypted, and I cannot decrypt that data. Even if I get your username and password for Gmail, I will not get your thing if I cannot decrypt your message. Okay, so this is sniffing, and there are so many softwares available so that you can sniff on the internet. So if this machine wants to sniff data on this Ethernet link, it is very, very easy. Okay, there are so many softwares available, but so yeah, so like Wireshark software is there, even you can sniff packets over the internet. Then there is another same thing that I have discussed, fake identity. So this problem is IP spoofing, okay? So injection of packet with false source address, or it could be destination address. So same is the case, this B requires DNS address. As a C, I would say I am a DNS address, okay? And this is, then this B will say, okay, send me IP address of my bank. I will say this is the IP address of aib.ie, okay? And I know on this fake IP address, I would be running same website which look like AIB, right? And what you will do, you will enter your registration number, PIN code, and other stuff, and it will say, oh no, network is down for a moment, right? So, but at the back end, they have stored your data in their databases. Later on, they can use actual AIB website or some other thing to do some transaction. It is possible, okay? So, in terms of internet, this is IP spoofing, and in terms of attacks, we also call this sort of attack as phishing attacks. So just remember that whenever you are, the easiest way to avoid this phishing attack is whenever you are trying to open some website and you have to enter some confidential or important data, just recheck your address bar again. Is it showing aib.ie? Because, you know, as a human, we only look at web browser page. If same web page that would be opening for Facebook interface or AIB interface, we wouldn't check again that, okay, this is, because at the address bar, it wouldn't be aib.ie, it would be something else, okay? So it means that it's phishing attack. So you can get username and passwords by doing phishing attacks. It's very easy to trap someone in phishing attacks, okay? So this is IP spoofing. Same is the case with some other thing. For example, if I want to watch some YouTube video, might be because of IP spoofing, I'm redirecting to some other video website, and I would be surfing. It will look like YouTube interface, but it is not in YouTube. Address bar would be saying that it is something. And obviously, that type of cheaters know that they will take IP domain, which would be variant of YouTube. Might be spelling of YouTube would be different. U would be different, and tube.com, right? Instead of YOU, it would be YUO.tube.com. You cannot catch quickly, okay? So, but big companies usually buy more or less same spelling mistake or some sort of thing, domain names, so that people, if you write Google, not correct spelling of Google, it will not at least redirect to you some other fake page of Google, or it could be redirect to you actual Google website, okay? So do check on address bar that this is the same website that you want to check if you know there is IP spoofing or not. Got this point? IP spoofing, phishing attacks, right? They are very common. People are losing money or something. Like even in Ireland, millions of euros in this year people have lost because of this phishing attack. They got message from AIB, okay, your password is compromised. So click on mass. They will click it. It will open very similar website of AIB, and they will enter it, and they will ask you to change your password or something, and then they will say password is changed, or they will say, okay, one member will contact you again for changing password sort of thing. But your actual password and username, they have taken it. They have stored in database, and then they will quickly do transactions as quick as possible. Okay.
Can they reach, like, if you have saved your debit card or credit card, like, can they, do you know what I mean? If I buy something in a website and then it says, do you want to save your this card for next purchase, and those kind of things, can it reach, like?
It depends if that website in sometimes got hacked,
Oh, okay.
then obviously all the information would be compromised,
Yeah,
right?
but I mean, if I'm the computer B or device B, can device C reach that information for me if it wants to?
If it's not encrypted, then obviously this information would be going through C.
Yeah.
C can read if it's not encrypted, or they know how to decrypt it,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
So most of the times people inside the company are involved in this sort of attacks. Facebook people or bank people, or they know that they will tell, okay, how to decrypt this message.
Yeah.
Okay, so when just remember that in the world, whenever you are creating some lock, you have to create its key as well. So if that key is compromised, even if that lock is so powerful, with a key, it's nothing. We know that, right? So this is fake identity and IP spoofing. So yeah, so just like this, for example, so this source thing is compromised, and if some important information is coming from A, it will say I sent this data. So A don't know who is the actual owner of B or C. Then obviously A will send results back to C instead of B. Or even if sent back, because it would be broadcasted, then obviously B will not get that sort of thing, because the destination would be changed. Other thing important in terms of network is denial of service. And you know that because of this cyber attack at NUIG, we are facing this sort of thing. We discussed this thing, denial of service, right? If you have to protest with some ministry and they have 2 phone lines to work on, if 100 people are keep calling 24 hours, it means that their phone service is not working. It will be engaged, right? So this is denial of service. So denial of service attacks are very, very common, and even so you can see attackers make resources unavailable to legitimate traffic by overwhelming resources with bogus traffic. Okay, so if I am creating bogus traffic for some network, then what it will do, it will block that link for actual users, right? For example, if I write some code which can open connection with Google, and this code has a capability of opening 10,000 connections per second. So what it will do, it will keep opening 10,000 connections with Google, so that the actual users who want to use Google, they cannot open it, because web server has some capability, some capacity, 10,000 or 1 million or whatever the capacity. I can go above that capacity, so that actual users or legitimate traffic cannot go through by this way. So this is denial of service attack, but nowadays these denial of service attacks are distributed denial of service attacks. Like there are so many people sitting in different countries and they are attacking on one server, and it's very easy. This denial of service attack is there, and so they will select one target and all of the machines break into hosts around the network. So it will occupy different machines. So it will send, and even in distributed denial of service, if some virus is installed somehow on your computer, you can become a member of this denial of service attackers, but you don't know. Okay, it is possible. So whenever you are installing some softwares on your computers or on your mobile, you can become active member of denial of service attackers. Okay, you don't know because you are connected with your internet and you don't know this machine or this app or software on your computer can become an active denial of service attack to some other target. Okay, so you can see here this somehow because of different viruses or different things, they will become active member of this denial of service attacks, and it will start sending different packets to targets. So these are the compromised hosts. Okay, so whenever you are installing your softwares or especially apps, do check that how much data they are using, when they are using. If you are not using that app for 1 week, then why this app used 1 GB data in one last week? Why? There should be some reason. Okay, so it means that your network or your mobile was used for some other purposes. Okay, so this is denial of service attack, and nowadays it is distributed denial of service attack. People from all over the world, sometimes they know, but in most of the times they just become victim and then or compromise host, and they will start sending data to Facebook, for example. Okay, so if Facebook is getting 95% request, fake request, then obviously actual users wouldn't get that type of quality of service, right? So quality or service quality would be compromised. So there are different strategies to avoid this denial of service attack, but because of distributed nature of this internet, it's quite difficult. And it's quite difficult to catch that type of people who are part of this denial of services because of different political aspects are there, right? So one country with some other country, if they have some issues, then obviously they will support people who can do this sort of attacks to different government websites or some other services of some other country, right? So this is denial of service attack. So lines of defense, last thing that we want to cover in this lecture. Then we will discuss network security in more detail in week 10. So authentication, proving you are who you say you are. Okay, so cellular networks provides hardware identity via SIM card. Okay, no such hardware exists in traditional internet. Okay, so like if you are calling someone through your mobile, the company knows that okay, this is 083335571 is calling from here to this thing. But if this laptop is using the internet, there is no as such identity. The only identity could be MAC address, machine address of this thing, but it's very easy and it's very cheap to replace my MAC address. Like I would replace my network card once I launched one attack from this laptop, then I will spend $20 to replace 20 euros to replace new network card in it, and this no one can trace me that this laptop was used for some sort of attack. Okay, so this is authentication. Confidentiality, obviously we can do it through encryption, and we discussed a little bit about encryption. We will discuss more encryption, that encryption is based on, nowadays it is based on keys, public and private keys. We will discuss this sort of thing in the next week. Integrity checks, so digital signatures are there. Okay, so digital signatures detect tampering. So we will discuss digital signatures, how they work in the next week. So, but the important thing is that if I am connecting with AIB should have some digital signature so that my web browser can authenticate, okay, it is actual website of AIB or it is actual website of Facebook. Okay, So this is digital signatures. We will discuss how this digital signatures work, but just remember that for every lock there is a key. So people can still make fake digital signatures, but okay. Access restrictions, password protected VPNs, okay, virtual private networks. So you know that in every bank there is no internet facility. You know this thing or no? By rules, bank staff is not allowed to use smartphones or internet services within the bank premises by rule, okay? But 99% people or bank people usually follow this sort of thing. And similarly, their laptops or computers that they are using within the internet, within the bank, it's not connected to the internet. It's connected with some sort of intranet services, okay? They cannot use Facebook. They cannot open, in fact. Use is something else. They cannot open. Even they cannot bring their laptop to home for work or something. It is not allowed. And in many cases, banking data or bank information was compromised when one of the manager or someone take bank's laptop back to home for some work, because at home he or she was connected to a public internet, local, not intranet of the bank, right? And at that time, some worms or viruses was installed, and then when he was back to the bank, all the data that worms were collecting, that softwares were collecting and sending to the different people, and even millions of dollars were compromised because of this sort of thing, okay? So access restrictions, password protected VPNs, this is very important. Like if someone is working in security, in military or some other offices, might be they don't have permission to take mobile in the office. They have to submit it in the main gate and then they can use it. Okay? Firewalls are there. So firewalls are specialized middle boxes. We will discuss firewalls in the next lecture, and they are technically one server which is checking different data that would be sent in or out, and in terms of detection or reaction of DOS attacks, that firewall works. And you know that on your local computers, even on laptops, we do have firewall installed, some sort of thing. In firewall, the basic setting is that we just close different ports and we don't allow different softwares to open ports. Just remember that communication is through ports. If that port is open, anyone can send or receive data to that port. So the easiest way to secure your machine is to close that port. Only open 2, 3, 4 ports that you require for your functionality. Okay, so on web servers, they will only open 8080 port. They will not allow other ports to send data, because data would be sent through ports. Okay, so we discussed this thing, that ports, what are ports, because every process needs one virtual address, one port, socket, right? So for socket, so we can restrict this sort of thing, and this is one of the main functionality of firewall that would be installed at NUIG. It will check all the ports access and restriction sort of thing. Okay, so these are the different things that we have to discuss in network security, and it's a very good field to research, and even for in terms of carrier, cyber attacks are there. So cyber security is a very promising field in terms of carrier or in terms of a different thing. So any question? Okay, now we can stop here.